Hi, guys. Welcome back to Skoldiers and Spice. I'm Sally, your host of Skoldiers and Spice. Here I go messing up stuff already. I was just telling Dave it's been 2 weeks since I've done a live show. I don't remember how to do it. But, anyways, welcome back to the Vikings First and SKOL Network. We have some breaking news tonight, even though the Viking season has come to an end, and I'm still a little bit bummed about it. The action is still rolling on. It's not stopping. The Vikings did agree to terms with Kevin O'Connell today for a multi-year deal to keep him as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. And I've got my pal Dustin Baker here with me tonight. We are going to get into this free agent class and make some predictions on who we think is going to be on the 2025 roster. We have a ton to talk about, so grab a drink and get comfortable. Let's get into it. Dustin, hello, my friend.
I am here. We're going to talk about some glorious topics. What a night to have me on. This is fantastic.
I know we have so much going on. As I mentioned, we had the Kevin O'Connell breaking news, but you and I have not chatted in a couple weeks at least. We've had some texting, but I don't think we have talked. Was it after? Oh, I got your thoughts after the Lions game, but we haven't talked since the loss and the Vikings a quick exit from the playoffs. How did you take all of that?
Well, you needed time to heal, and that was fair because you made the voyage there only to confront some disappointment. How did I take it in the moment? How can I put this? I always say, and I say this pretty routinely to people who ask about the Vikings doldrums, I would rather the Vikings lose convincingly than miss a last-second field goal or some bullshit. So it was kind of a gradual reality over 2.5 hours that this thing was turning into a Darnold stinker. So the disappointment set in mainly because we're going to look back on this season on a sour note. And everything Darnold did through 16 games was fantastic, outside of one bad Jaguars game that the Vikings won anyway. So I took it like an adult. It took me about 3 hours to shake it off and then start thinking about the offseason. In my 20s, I would let it stew for weeks. But I'm in a different spot now, and I'm excited for the offseason. But on the whole, I'm really sad that a 14-3 season meant virtually nothing, and one that felt more credible than the 2022 13-4 record.
Credible is such a good word that you just used. I wish I would have thought of that earlier because that's exactly how I feel about it as well. I will say I have come a long way from my episode that I posted last week here. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned into that episode and took the time to leave a comment. I was super nervous to post myself crying on YouTube over a Vikings game, but that was how I genuinely felt. And I recorded it and I edited it and I had sent it to Dave, and he texted me in the morning and I said, I'm having second thoughts about this. I don't know if I want to post it because I just thought people are going to be how people in the internet that I've had, but it's by far the most interaction and comments that I've had. And I just wanted to say thanks to anybody who did take the time because I feel so much less alone now that we have this community and stuff. So that was really cool. But yeah, Dustin, I was crying for like almost a week.
Well, it was founded because, it was justifiable because you made the whole trip there, and this season felt different. I think one of the things I was saying before the Lions game to people was we can trust Darnold, and I was emphatically wrong because you never showed any signs of that. So for you to be emotional is perfectly in bounds because we just didn't see signs of meltdowns at all. And the only thing I leave the season with is leave it to the Vikings to, when they get to the two most crucial games, that's when you decide to have your poor performances. Because I don't know, I almost wished like in a random old week 5 game or something like that, we would have seen them look like garbage because at least we would have known it was in their DNA. It just showed up at the least appropriate time of all.
That's exactly why it caught me by surprise. It's just we haven't seen this all season, and they just played completely different than we had seen. But I don't want to take up too much time with that because we are all trying to move on. But I was going to start off with Kevin O'Connell, but the chat is popping off about the Lions and their quick demise from the playoffs. So maybe we should start with that. I I knew that the Commanders had a chance in that game. You and I both love the Commanders. We've been giving them praises all year, but I had no idea that they would be able to put up that type of a performance. And now those Lions fans that were just ragging on us all season, the last 2 years, but definitely this season, are in the exact same boat sitting with us on the couch. How do you think that their window is closed now? They're obviously losing at least one coordinator. The other one is still interviewing. And I know that Dan Campbell, a lot of people say he's successful because of his coordinators. But what are your thoughts on all of that going down?
No, I do not think the Lions' window is closed, unfortunately. They have about another year before the salary cap gets pretty nasty. But they are going to lose those coordinators. They already have. We think Aaron Glenn will get hired by the Jets or the Saints. And so they're going to have to start from scratch there. But they have enough roster construction foundation to be good again. They probably blew it this time. The one season when the field was pretty thin through the NFC to get through. They did blow this one. But I have thought this about Jared Goff now since I saw him play for the Rams. He's right there in that category with Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins at times, Dak Prescott, where there's going to be games you watch and we're like, holy shit, this guy is it. And there's going to be games, this is like Darnold. There's going to be games where you watch where you're like, wow, this is why he isn't in that tier, that crust, that category with Mahomes and Josh Allen. And I just don't know if you can ever fully trust Goff. Like you can never 100% trust Darnold anymore. You can't trust Stafford. Like he took no heat, Stafford against the Eagles. That last fourth down, he just sailed it out of bounds. Nobody gave a shit. If that were any other quarterback, especially ones that have played for the Vikings in recent years, we would have been crucify time. But if Stafford, it's like, oh, he missed it. We'll get him next time. So if I was a Lions fan, I'd feel optimistic, probably getting back to where you were, winning the division, be like flirtatious in the playoffs. But with Jared Goff, it's kind of one of those things where you need the 2021 Rams. You need everything, and then you need Goff to stay hot. And for me, he's just like Dak Prescott, where I'll watch him on a lot of Sundays and be like, yeah, this guy's really good. But he's never guaranteed to get it done when it matters the most.
I'm with you. And I think you and I did text quite a bit about it seems like the overwhelming theme of these guys who gave us shit all year, by the way, I would not be ragging on them if they were not in my mentions, in my DMs, just being despicable human beings. Their whole excuse is the injuries. Well, we saw this coming once we had 16 people on IR or whatever. Now they all saw it coming, and it's like they need that as an excuse. But I don't see anyone talking about Jared Goff's performance at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was the arbiter of 4 turnovers, and then they got real fun and used Jameson Williams to throw an interception. And yeah, they were, any football game, especially the biggest moments of the playoffs, if your turnover differential is upside down 0-5, you're not going to win. That's how it was so incredible and miraculous that the Vikings were even in the 2009 NFC Championship because they had a similar turnover split. And so they were good enough to make up for a lot of those warts, but it's X's and O's football. If you turn the ball over in the playoffs just more than like one time more than your opponent, you're in trouble, let alone 5. So I knew as soon as that thing started to wrap up and the Commanders had pulled off the stunner, I knew their fans were going to either pivot to, oh, same old Lions, like, oh, poor us. I was like, no, I wrote the book on that. I know all about that, pal. And then secondarily, they're going to blame the injuries. And it's like, well, I guess if injuries would work, if your offense would have, I just don't understand how defensive injuries caused 5 turnovers on offense. And you just weren't good enough. Just like the 2009 Vikings weren't good enough. You weren't good enough to beat the Saints. These guys weren't good enough to beat the Commanders.
Yeah, you've got me. I don't know how that works, but what do you see going on this weekend with the Commanders? Do you think that they can beat the Eagles?
Well, I didn't. I thought the Lions would win 41-30 over the Commanders, so my opinion here is kind of silly. No, I think their Cinderella run will run out. But again, I thought this last week. Jaden Daniels is probably the most poised and productive quarterback since Dan Marino in 1984. Remember, Patrick Mahomes didn't really play his rookie season. C.J. Stroud was great last year. Justin Herbert was pretty fantastic in 2020. But none of them looked like almost bored. That's how cool Jaden Daniels seems,
Yeah.
whether he's in nothing he ever does is panicked at all.
No.
It must be A, his personality, and B, playing in big games at LSU. But I think they have a puncher's chance to beat the Eagles for one reason outside of how good they looked against the Lions, and this is a division game. And if the Vikings are ever fortunate enough to get back to an NFC Championship, and we look up and we're playing the Packers, the Lions, the Bears got a long way to go. It's not that you can throw everything out the window. It's just that those games are a little bit different because you know the opponent so intimately. So my one hope, because I don't want the Eagles to win for the Commanders, is that familiarity they have with the Eagles. Plus, I just haven't seen signs of Jaden Daniels collapsing. And I think we kind of, like I said about Darnold, we've seen that by now. Ultimately, I will pick the Eagles to win by 7 as a prediction, but I'll be cheering like a fiend for Washington.
Yeah, for real. It's really phenomenal what they've been able to do in just one season and just being away from Dan Snyder and how they've turned, I mean, not even turned that much of the roster around. A lot of it is the same, but just having Dan Quinn in there and what a difference it's made having Jaden Daniels and all of this turning around so quick. I think we're going to be watching them for seasons to come. So I really enjoy watching them. I hope that they can do it as well. But let's say what's up to the chat here. Queen Mary, hi, good to see you. And SKOL Mafia, what's up? Chris Gates is here. He says Jared Goff led the offense that tied for the fewest points scored in the Super Bowl. He's not good. That's a good point. That seems so long ago to me, but that's true.
And there's always the nugget, even though he's done a good job of dispelling it, there's always the nugget that Sean McVay didn't want you. And I'll never, ever quite get past that. Like we're talking about a quarterback whisperer, just like O'Connell.
Yes.
If Sean McVay just kicked you out, you're probably not going to ever be elite.
That's always been curious to me as well. Chris Gates also said that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn have been propping up Dan Campbell's Weekend at Bernie's style. Reality is going to hit them hard. I love the Weekend at Bernie's reference. That's hilarious. Hello, Chris Thompson. I saw that we had Brandon, who I had never seen in here before. Oh, here he is. All of a sudden, I want to move to Minnesota. There are no Vikings fans where I live, especially women. Brandon, tell us where you live. I moved to Minnesota to be around Vikings fans, so totally relate to that sentiment. I highly recommend it. And cause and effect, Sal, can we admit that the Week 17 game hurt us just as much as the Vikings? Cause and effect, I need you to give me more information on that because I'm not sure what you're asking.
Probably to get us excited and buy into it.
Yeah, I don't know. Week 17 hurt as much as the Vikings? I don't know.
That turned out to be our magnum opus, beating the Packers.
Oh, that's what he means. Okay, yeah, I know. Well, look, we won the Super Bowl twice this year. So who cares, right? We won the Super Bowl twice. We've got it. Cora is here. What's up, girl? Maddie, hi. Hi, guys. Thank you all for being here. But all right, let's move on. Kevin O'Connell, he's our coach. He's not getting traded. We're going to have him for at least a few more years here. I'm so relieved. I was so worried about it. But no, I'm kidding. I'm glad that we've got this out of the way now. And how are you feeling? I'm assuming you're not surprised either.
No, I'm not surprised one iota. The one thing I want to point out that this rumor mill about Kevin O'Connell was always a little weird, I guess, the last 2 weeks, because the Vikings aren't late at all in extending this contract. We've talked about him in the last 2 weeks as if his deal is done and he's a free agent. The way that we've had this sense of panic, or at least our community has, this is the perfect natural time to extend Kevin O'Connell right now today. This is when it usually happens. And so I've been trying to scratch my bald head for 2 weeks figuring out why are we buying into this? Now, 2 weeks ago, Jay Glazer was on Fox NFL Sunday and said multiple teams were interested in trading Kevin O'Connell. I bet they were. You had all these openings. They probably told him, yeah, we're calling to see what KOC's price tag is. The Vikings said, you know what, he's not for sale. So I have no problem with Jay Glazer's reporting. You know, it's a compliment, and Jay Glazer's fantastic. It's that the world and the internet ran with it as a actual controversy, like, hey, are the Vikings going to get rid of Kevin O'Connell? No. Right. Every time they talk about the guy, they gush with like, oh, this is our guy. So it was always in it. This was just like Justin Jefferson last year in the trade rumors. First, it was like, oh, Jefferson doesn't want to play for anybody but Kirk. And it's like, yes. Really? Do you hear what you're saying? And then secondarily, like, He also said the same thing. This is the team that drafted me. This is where I want to be. So they're fake controversies, I guess, just drummed up by folks that want to see Vikings personalities go elsewhere. At the end of the day, to me, today was like fruition. Of course, the quarterback whisperer coach is going to be back in Minnesota. They have the NFL's sixth best win percentage with he and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah in-house. And Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is supposed to be extended here pretty soon. So we already knew this was coming, but in terms of it getting it done, I'm glad we don't have to listen to any garbage about, if there's smoke, there's fire with trade rumors. And a lot of that was, spearheaded by one website run by a notable Viking fan.
Right. Yeah. Tyler mentioned on his show earlier today about the Jay Glazer situation, and he got very offended about people calling him out about waiting until Sunday to break that news and stuff. And I thought it was really funny. So, yeah, you guys should look up that episode if you missed it earlier. But it was all just so ridiculous for me as well. It's like, this isn't happening, and I don't get it. How we're in this day and age where everybody has to be extended before their contract runs out, or it means you're not confident in them. And I don't understand it at all, because that wouldn't even be in Kevin O'Connell's best interest. If he would have gotten to the NFC Championship or even potentially the Super Bowl, that would completely change the terms of his contract as well. So I don't know why it's not mutually beneficial to wait until this point. But yeah, you mentioned Kwesi. I think that will be coming as well. I do think that they're pretty much a package deal, how that goes. Just kind of like, well, I'm going to say Zimmer and Rick Spielman, but Rick Spielman was on a long time longer than Mike Zimmer, who, by the way, just got engaged last week. So congrats to Mike Zimmer on his engagement. I was very surprised to see that he was still with the same girl that he was with when he was still here. So happy for him. But I see, okay, Emmer says the Wilfs are invested. Oh, no, sorry. Purple Pessimist started it by saying that he's losing confidence in the Wilfs because... Oh my gosh, I'm the worst at managing the chat. He said he's losing confidence in the Wilfs basically because they have less wins than any other owner in the league. Not the very last. Okay. I don't know if I trust the Wilfs anymore. Least successful owners this franchise has ever had. I don't know. I personally don't agree with that at all. I mean, maybe the wins, losses, I'm not sure how that breaks down. But as far as wanting this team to be successful, wanting the fans to be happy and engaged with the team, making the whole stadium deal happen. And I mean, look at the facility in Egan and all of that. I think that they are definitely putting their money where their mouth is as far as wanting this team to be good. The rumor is they didn't want them to get rid of Kirk when Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi came to town because they weren't willing to do a true rebuild because they want the fans to be happy. So I don't know if I believe that. What do you think, Dustin?
No, I don't know how you could come. I mean, respectfully, that the Wilfs are anything but stellar. It's weird. This is another thing that gets kind of like sometimes I hear that the Wilfs are puppet masters. That they're telling Kwesi everything to do, and then sometime when it's convenient for the dialogue, we hear they don't do anything. I tend to think that they're more hands off, and they let the general manager and the head coach run the show. Well, and if they had an opinion about Kirk Cousins, then this is their football team. I would expect them to have a top-down opinion. The only beef you can have at all with the Wilfs, and it'd be kind of a weird beef to have, is they always want to be competitive. This franchise, like the Steelers, like the Patriots, like the Saints, they never, like the Chiefs, they never burn it down. They never say, you know what, we're willing to go 3-14 for the greater good, so we're going to tank. And if you like tanking, if that is your sports... that's what you enjoy watching, then this is not the right franchise for you. They are always going to try their damnedest to have a winning record, and in their bad seasons, as of late, they're going to be 7-10, stuck in that mediocrity. So I think if there's one beef for some about the Wilfs, it's that they are too competitive. They always want to be good never want to burn it, down to the ground.
Exactly. I would agree with you. Okay. Brandon is in Canada. First time listener. Well, thank you for being here. And you said you don't have any Vikings fans around you. We've got Darren here on our channel on Two Old Bloggers. He's in Canada. My girl, Nicole. We've got quite a few people in Canada. So I don't know. You gotta get out there and meet some people. But okay, before we move on from the coaches, we've got to talk about Brian Flores. Because I think about a month or so ago, we would all be surprised if we were in this situation. I think we pretty much took it as a foregone conclusion that he was not going to be back this year, that he was going to get a head coaching job. He deserved it, and there was going to be enough openings, but that certainly hasn't been the case. He interviewed a few times, but did not get called back for second interviews. It's looking like a long shot right now. What do you think?
Well, I think it is basically a done deal that he will be back. I'll remind you, I think I've told you this before, Sally, maybe not on your show. I've been told he's compensated like a head coach by
Oh,
this Vikings ownership that we just talked about. So I have already really got it in the back of my mind that he's going to be back, because the 3 spots that he interviewed with, they're basically off the board so long as the Jets don't have a midnight swerve here. I guess maybe he could last minute interview with the Cowboys or the Saints, but that probably would have come out by now. I think Brian has 2 things going against him. Well, maybe 3. The first one is he might be going through right now what his lawsuit alleges is that the interviews that he were given were what he considered token interviews. There's a chance that's
mhm.
going on, although it's just a speculation from me. The other 2 biggies are those Tua Tagovailoa comments from August, when Tua came out on somebody's podcast and basically said this guy is a prick and treated me like I was the devil and vice versa. That's not going to help when you're trying to get a head coaching job, especially like in Chicago, when you have a moody quarterback who's going to need your tutelage. So I think the Tua comments hurt him in the long run, not that they were justified. And then kind of on, like, let's see here, trying to figure out, the lawsuit hasn't been resolved yet, and I
Right.
don't know if you're trying to find the best of the best coaching candidates, that might be a disadvantage. Like when you get
Mhm.
into those, rich owners' war rooms, I don't know if
Mhm.
that is a hindrance. So I would say the lawsuit, litigation, and then what happened with Tua are strikes against him. And I consider him coming back for year number 3 with the Vikings. We shall see.
Yeah, I agree. I'm relieved. I mean, not for him personally. I think that he does deserve an opportunity, but for us selfishly, I'm happy that it's not going that great for him out there. I think it didn't help also that Ryan Fitzpatrick came out in the last couple weeks and basically agreed with Tua and added additional comments to that. For me, I could have taken the Tua comments with a grain of salt, just he had a different experience than everyone else. But when somebody like Fitzpatrick, who has been in the league for what was it, like 19 years or something crazy, had been in at least 9 different locker rooms, played for, I'm sure, dozens of coaches. When he put some credence on it, it's like, well, okay, maybe, but I don't know if that's still affecting him right now.
The
I think, oh, go ahead.
The other thing, right in line with Fitzpatrick or Tua's comments, is you might recall that August day, Flores was asked about the interview like 2 hours later, or maybe it was a day later, and he
Hmm.
came out and said, "Damn, like I made him feel that way. That's on me. I want to do better."
Yeah.
Normally, a firebrand, a dickhead, or an asshole would be like, "Nah, man, screw that guy. He's wrong." But
Mhm.
Flores was very introspective about how those comments were hurtful for him, but how he could also grow. That leads me to believe A, he's a very good man, and that B, he will eventually get a head coaching job. Uh, there's probably a lot of ball coaches that would, tell Tua like, "Screw you, you couldn't be coached." I just think that coming out of New England, Flores was probably a little bit rough around the edges with his style, because that's what he
Mhm.
learned with Belichick. And after a couple years removed from that situation, I think he's learned like this is a different day and age. And when you sit there and observe Kevin O'Connell, who is the anti-Belichick when it comes to player treatment, you have this guy you just want to like hug.
Right.
He's so nice. I think Flores has learned from the best of both worlds, and perhaps his that tough guy persona that he has, although still tough, he might be a little bit smoother with players from here going
Oh,
forward.
he absolutely has to be. Otherwise, he wouldn't fit in the C's locker room, collaboration, culture. What's the other one? There's another one. I don't know, guys. Help me out with what the other C is. But all right, let's start talking about the free agents. We can start off with the defense just because we were just talking about them. I'm going to get your thoughts on a few, just like the bigger names that everyone is contemplating the most. And I think Cam Bynum is the one that I see people the most torn about if they want him back or if they don't want him back. What do you think?
Wanting him back?
Well, how realistic do you want him back and how realistic that he is back?
So my bold prediction for the Vikings offseason that published last weekend is I think Harrison Smith, despite his emotional after post-game interview, I think he will come back for one more hurrah
Really?
if Brian Flores is back. I don't have intel on that. That's my personal theory. That
Yeah.
slightly reduces your need for a safety. Cameron Bynum, I don't know that I would give him the ginormous deal that he will probably ask for. I think it's more realistic the Vikings would spend that money on Javon Holland from the Dolphins, who Flores drafted in 2021,
Oh,
who might be the best safety in football. He's a free agent if Miami lets him walk. I think
interesting.
it's significantly more likely, probably stealing the show's thunder, that Byron Murphy is back than Cameron Bynum. I will not be upset if both come back. That'll be fine by me. But I will put this out there based on how we were talking a month ago. Getting those guys back probably wouldn't be possible if we were about ready to hand Sam Darnold 40, 45 million per season. So I think we have that luxury where if we're pretty sure the Vikings are going to roll with JJ McCarthy and not give Darnold 35, 45, 55 million, then you can look at the piggy bank and say, yeah, we'll take Murphy back. We can have a Bynum back. We can go pursue some guards like Trey Smith. That's the flexibility you have when Darnold handed you two ginormous stinkers.
Yeah, I guess that is the bright side. That's one thing on the bright side, and then also that we just don't have to argue about it, hopefully all off season about what
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do. At quarterback, I am relieved for those reasons, but I'm still pretty bummed about it all. I don't know what to think about Cam Bynum. I can see him definitely going elsewhere. I think he's just such a locker room guy that it's great to have him around, but I do think that they would be able to replace him with someone comparable. But I don't know. It's interesting. I've heard people say that, oh, well, he loves Flores so much. Maybe he'll take a team friendly deal. I don't know. Maybe he obviously
He
seems like he
shouldn't.
loves. No, he shouldn't. And that's the thing
No,
too. It's like it's his chance to hit the market for the
yeah.
first time. I don't think that he will do that, especially his family is huge. He's got people in the Philippines he's taking care of. You know, he's a generous guy and he's going to spread his wealth around. So I don't see that happening, but I'm surprised that you feel that way about Harrison Smith. I
Mm-hmm.
just felt like his post-game interviews, that's what kind of made me think that he was done. Just how emotional he was and how he really tried to talk to the media. It's not something that we see a lot from him. So for him to open up like that, I kind of thought, all right, maybe we've seen
Yeah.
the last of him.
Let me clean it up. That's my bold prediction. That
Yeah.
like my out there thing. Um, I think I think a lot of that was the team's expectation that they were really good and they believed they were going to beat the Rams, and then to perform as poorly as they did. I think that was the raw emotion for a guy who knew in the coming weeks he has to contemplate the end. So when you do watch those two video clips with separate reporters, I think one was from Ben Lieber and one was with Fox 9 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
Don
looked like
Rickles.
a guy that was about to retire. But I'm going to guess the body feels good. The emotions burn off. Flores is back. I mean, we'll probably convince ourselves this team can have a winning record again with McCarthy in the saddle. My bold prediction is that Harrison Smith will be back, but don't go saying, "Hey, Hitman's
Oh,
coming back because Dustin said so."
yeah, there's so much to consider on that, not just how he's feeling, but does the team even want him back? Can they work out a situation? I do agree with you. I think Flores being there improves the odds immensely that he
Mm-hmm.
would come back. And I did think, I mean, it was just, it made me, I don't know, I didn't even really, I couldn't bring myself to watch most of it because of the emotional state I was already in. But to see Josh Metellus so emotional and Cam and Harrison, it just really made it even more of a bummer that this locker room is most likely not going to be here next year. And they brought us so many fun moments. And yeah, yeah, it was that really, I don't know. It sucks. It's hard to watch, but the
Mm-hmm.
chat is popping off, you guys. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and we will get to more of these questions in a second. All right, we talked about Byron Murphy. I agree with you. I think they'll find a way to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But Shaq Griffin is one that is kind of perplexing to me. I don't know where I fall with him. I don't even know if I necessarily want them to bring him back. What do you think?
He'd be really low on my priority list, although I like him. But this is the off season now where we believe we're going to start the Brave New World era with JJ McCarthy. We can't do year to year solutions with rental cornerbacks like Gilmore and Shaq
Yeah.
Griffin. So the way that I see it, Byron Murphy came out last summer and said that he wants to stay in Minnesota. So I think they'll spend on him. You have Mekhi Blackman, who's coming back from the ACL tear. Dwight McLaughlin, unknown commodity there, and then a couple practice squad guys they've signed. I think if you use your 24th overall pick on Jahdae Barron from Texas or Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, basically use your first round capital on a cornerback, then that room will be set up for good. I think they probably learned their lesson that they got away with it with Gilmore, who was pretty awesome at times, and then Shaq Griffin, who was decent, I guess. That isn't the way to build a Super Bowl contender. You've got to plan with youth, and this franchise is way damn overdue to find a good cornerback in the draft. We haven't had one since our almost back-to-backers with Xavier Rose and Trey Waynes. So I would say unless they sign DJ Reed, who is a free agent, that the first pick will be spent on a cornerback. And, Drink, we've had this mock draft talker cornerback in the first round since we've known each other, Sally.
Yes, I know.
Mm-hmm. It's always which cornerback. Yep.
Oh man, I'm already getting anxious about the mock drafts. I know they've already begun, but oh man, that's another thing. Them trying to wrap my mind around with this season abruptly ending, because that was the thing. It just, how did it go from competing for home field advantage and a number one seed to just being over like that?
Mm-hmm.
I feel I still have a little bit of a whiplash, but all right, let's move on to the offense. Is there anybody else on the defense that you think is perplexing, or those are the ones
Let's
that stick out
see.
to me?
No, I want to point out that the Vikings have about $60 million in cap space because they signed all of their future deals last week. That was over a dozen guys. So we're down to 60. A lot of that cap space will evaporate if they re-sign existing players because half of this roster is scheduled to hit free agency. I want to point that out. I don't know that the spending spree will be as ginormous as we're all thinking. On defense, other than that, I think the biggies, Byron Murphy be back, Cameron Bynum, I'm on the fence, probably leaves. My bold prediction is that Harrison Smith is back. Use your first rounder on a corner. Maybe look at DJ Reed in free agency. And then for the life of me, if they ever listen to me and draft the defensive tackle who is good and not Shamar Stephen, not Jamar Bullard, not Armin Watts, like an actually good one, then we can really be cooking with gas.
Oh my God. Okay, let's move on to the offense. I think we are in agreement that Sam Darnold is not back in any capacity, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the O'Connell, like this might be one of those things where O'Connell says to Kwesi, "Hey, if you can get him back for me, I mean we can do good things." But I'm going to guess Kwesi puts his foot down and says, "Damn you! You selected this Michigan guy last year. This is the guy you wanted." McCarthy or Darnold would have made this really tricky for us if he would have played quasi competent in either game, but he face planted so abruptly that the Vikings would be criminal to give him the deal that he's probably going to get from the Raiders or Giants, 2 years, 70 million, something like that. And if you get in your bag thinking about how this is going to go down, do you really think the Vikings went with 6 years of Kirk Cousins, drafted their big sexy rookie that they love, and now they're going to go back to Darnold, which is just kind of a Kirk Cousins do-over? No, they're going to roll with their guy, and Darnold's going to end up going someplace like the Seahawks, the Raiders, the Giants, the Steelers. Yeah, I would have said this would be markedly different if Darnold was not the cause of death for the 2024 season. But put simply, I don't know what the hell happened to him, but he flat out would not get rid of the ball in a game where both teams were blitzing the shit out of you.
Yeah, I don't know how we're ever going to make sense of that one, but I'm with you. There's no way that he's back on this team, in my opinion, even if for some reason, like you said, somebody wanted him to stick around. It's not in his best interest to stick around. He's not going to get paid what he's going to get paid elsewhere. So that to me is a non-talking point. But the backup quarterback situation is a little interesting because they do have to make the decision about Nick Mullins or are they going to maybe roll with Daniel Jones? I don't know how I feel about that one. I think it depends if you think Kevin O'Connell is going to go into training camp saying this is JJ McCarthy's team from the jump, or if he's going to consider it a competition. Which way do you see that going?
Selfishly, I don't.
Not a true competition, but you know how, we know Nick Mullins isn't going to be competing to be the number one. So if he goes with Nick Mullins back up, then that's the answer.
Yeah. My utopian scenario is that we don't have one shred of doubt by June that McCarthy is going to be the week 1 starter. But that's because I don't want there to be any devices that ruin his ascent to the week 1 starter. But I do think Daniel Jones in house. I think it makes sense to give him the Sam Darnold deal, which is 1 year, 10 million, and you are the QB2 if something bad happens to JJ McCarthy, a guy who's just coming off a torn meniscus. So if I had to guess right now, I'd say the quarterback room in 2025 is JJ McCarthy at the top, Daniel Jones QB2, and then Brett Rippon at QB3. That would be my guess. Nick Mullins can probably go get a QB2 job elsewhere. He's that good. That would be my guess there. Yes, if I could have one wish this offseason, it would be a healthy offseason for JJ McCarthy and then the unabashed commitment to him that you are the guy.
I agree with you. I think that's the mindset that they're going to have because you don't want Nick Mullins to be your starting quarterback. Heaven forbid something is to happen. But Daniel Jones, at least he has the track record that he could at least make it work for a while. I don't know about how good it would work, but I think you'd be more competitive with him in the long term than with Nick Mullins, who typically just comes in for a couple plays or a game or two, and that's pretty much what his role is. But I think the most interesting thing about the offense and what's going to happen is at running back position. And I did see Cause and Effect bring this up about Aaron Jones, and he doesn't see him as a number one. I don't see him as a number one. And I think especially if you look at these playoffs and how they've been going down, what a difference it makes to have a star running back like Derrick Henry or Saquon. I mean, it's unbelievable the difference. It's just glaring to me now, but I don't think Aaron Jones will be back. How do you feel?
I think the Vikings have it both ways on this one. So you can do this one both easier than you can do Darnold and McCarthy. And that is $6 million for Aaron Jones, who, if he's not fibbing, he loves it in Minnesota. You can sign him back. And then, by the way, with the 3rd round pick that you're going to get for Kirk Cousins' exit, which is going to be the 97th overall pick, you can get a good running back like Devin Neal from Kansas. Some of the really good guys, of course, Ashton Genty will be gone. Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Vikings fans got a crush on him. He'll probably be gone. Sally, I think you can do both here. I think you can re-sign Aaron Jones, who had a wonderful season. He just isn't quite as dynamic as these dudes we're watching on television, Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. I think you can have it both ways. You bring Jones back. This is my prediction. I really don't care if he comes back either way. But for the love of God, they've got to get a youthful running back solution in-house. We haven't drafted a running back with notable draft capital since Alexander Madison, and that was 6 years ago now. And we were just spoiled from 2007 until 2022 with Dalvin Cook and Adrian Peterson. So my endorsement is you guys decide what you want to do with Aaron Jones. Either way is fine with me, but you've got to get a young guy, hopefully, 20, 21 years old, and then you can split carries with Jones for one more year. Otherwise, if they don't want to do any of this, Javonte Williams is a free agent. He was the guy from the Broncos. You play fantasy football. I still think that guy's pretty good. The Broncos just, I think they're trolling us. They give 5 running backs carries per game, and it's absurd. So my endorsement is use your 3rd round pick that you got from Cousins' departure on a running back.
Oh my gosh. I don't, but do you think that Aaron Jones, the open market, wouldn't give him more than a 1-year deal? I know he's
going to be 31, and unbelievably, this was his most productive year per touches this year. Yards for scrimmage was up there. I think it was the 2nd busiest year. And then he played every game. The one knock on this guy was injury history, and the guy played every game for the Vikings. He's also a very good pass blocker, which I think is a prerequisite for Kevin O'Connell's offense. That's why Ty Chandler was jettisoned to RB3. Yeah, I think there's a role for Aaron Jones on the 2025 Vikings, but it's not going to be another situation where he gets 75% of the touches and carries.
Yeah, I really liked having Aaron Jones. I know in the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about how he did have such a huge impact on how the offense worked because of his pass blocking. And it really, when he wasn't in the game, Sam Darnold performed much worse when he wasn't compared to when he was. But as the season went on, I felt like almost every game he was banged up in the second half and couldn't play, or he played very limited snaps in the second half. So I also love having him. He loves being here, but I certainly hope that they can find somebody younger, as you mentioned, to take over that role full time, because it's been a while. As you said, Alexander Madison, wasn't he a second round pick?
Second round in, let's see, 2019. Same
Yeah.
draft as Irv Smith.
I remember being so mad about that. Like, what the
Or wait,
heck are
no,
you?
wait, no. Irv was a second rounder. I think Madison was a third rounder.
Oh, was he? Okay. I wanted to say second, but I started laughing just now because I saw that Too Evil says that Bradbury should be plunging toilets at US Bank Stadium. I'm not going to read the rest of it because that's too mean, but the offensive line, it's causing a lot of debate because it let the team down and Sam down, obviously, majorly in those last two games, and Sam deserves a lot of fault for that, but those guys really weren't helping him out too much. We've got Cam Robinson, potentially Reisner. Is there anyone else who's up for
Nope.
those two? The only two? Okay.
The other, you'd be electively getting rid of Bradbury and or Blake Brandel if you wanted to switch them all together, and then Ed Ingram is probably another possible cap casualty.
Yes. And we don't know exactly when Darisaw will be back. I think that injury, I mean, it was towards the end of October, so you would think it would be at least a solid year until he was back. Obviously, I don't know that for sure, but just based on what we see from other people, what do you think? There's a lot of people thinking, well, Cam Robinson, they can keep him and then move him to guard when Darisaw comes back. But I remember hearing that he wasn't open to that in Jacksonville. He didn't want to be moved to guard.
No.
So I don't really see that happening. What about you?
He'd be a moron to do that because he can go out and get 16, 17 million as a left tackle in this free agency. And for him to come back on the Vikings as a guard, that would reduce his pay like in half. So I don't think there's any possibility that he switches to guard. Based on the way that Kevin O'Connell kind of called out the interior offensive line right after the game, that leads me to believe there will be change. I just don't know if it'll be wholesale. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said in his press conference, the end of season press conference, that he doesn't look at the world in a binary way. And I tend to do this a lot. It's one of my big mistakes, is my knee-jerk reaction is to say, hey, Kevin O'Connell said the interior pass protection wasn't good. That means we're going to get through 2 or 3 new guys. That could happen, but there's also other ways to cultivate what you have, to look on your bench and say, hey, what do we have in Dan Feeney or Cam Jurgens, those type of guys. But ultimately, I do think there will be change. I think Dalton Reisner played a lot better than people wanted to give him credit for. Blake Brandel was the definition of mid. Like, he's signed for 3 years, $9 million, and that's exactly the way he played. Was a $3 million, left guard. And then Bradbury's the big fascinating one because he's become ingrained in the fabric of the Vikings. He's been here since 2019. There are 2 free agents to keep an eye on. Trey Smith is the big prize. He's expensive. He'll be coming from the Chiefs, we think. And then Drew Dahlman is a center from the Falcons who does everything great. The only problem with theorizing those as Viking solutions is that, half the NFL is going to want to get those guys. So we're going to have to hope that the Vikings have the piggy bank to do it. My other bold little take here is, and this won't be welcomed with open arms, is if Sam Darnold would have got the ball out like he normally did, we wouldn't be talking this much about the interior offensive line. They were not great or good, but whatever happened to Darnold in those last 2 games, he didn't do that shit in the first 16 weeks. So I feel like the offensive line interior was necessarily scapegoated, but at least half of the fault went to Sam Darnold because he forgot what to do when the other team sends its blitz.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. I started this show thinking, okay, I only want to say Sam Darnold's name maybe like 3 times. I'm ready to move on. I can't try anymore, but I think we've probably said it at least like 2 dozen times.
Yeah,
so
I'm guilty.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, hopefully we just won't talk about him that much in the future until he signs with his next team, and then we can wish him well. But
hell yeah.
I'm still in mourning with my Sam Darnold. I went bold on my Sam Darnold take, so I'm dialing it back. And yeah, it's been rough for the Darnold darlings the last 2-3 weeks. But Scott is here. Hi, Scott is a Washington fan. He is one of my oldest Twitter friends for probably like 15 years. I haven't seen him in here before. But he says he stopped in to say Washington will do their best to beat the Eagles on Sunday so we can keep cheering for Jaden. And then hopefully facing the Bills will leave you conflicted for a Super Bowl. I saw Chris mention this in the chat earlier also, that he, of course, does not want to root for Philadelphia by any means, but that that is going to make a much more competitive Super Bowl with the Eagles in the Super Bowl rather than the Commanders. And I don't know. I would like to think that the Commanders could hold their own against those AFC teams. What do you think? I mean, if they beat
Yeah,
Philadelphia, I feel like they could at least
yeah,
hang around. Like it's not going to be a
yeah.
blowout.
I keep thinking about the Commanders like I was thinking about them last week this time. Like eventually they're going to fizzle. And I'm trying to decide, do I need to keep thinking that? No, they probably earned my respect, benefit of the doubt that they can beat the Eagles. They don't punt. They never punt. They
Yeah.
score on all of their drives, and their defense, led by Dan Quinn, a defensive-minded guy, has gradually made that defense a lot better. It was real shitty for the first month or so, and it's gotten a lot better. So yeah, of course the Washington Commanders can make everything competitive, but history shows us that usually these teams that are little engine that could, they start to putter out at some point, and unfortunately, that's probably this weekend or I guess in the Super Bowl.
Yes. Okay. Cause and effect says Sal Dustin. How much power did KOC gain in the new deal? And do you think we lack a beefy tight end? I certainly don't know about power gained. I don't know if any of that's going to be mixed up. But as far as the tight end position goes, yeah, I mean, Hawkinson has been a disappointment to me, at least in the later part of the season. I mean, I know Sam could have thrown some of those balls a little better, but I think Hawkinson also could have caught a few more of them. And yeah, I would like to see some new tight ends in town. What do you think?
On the power structure, I don't think anything changed. I think he probably got a sweet ass raise. But one of the cool parts about this Vikings tandem is that this is a package deal. Like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, their decision making is, they speak from one voice. So if Kwesi's back, which we expect him to be, I don't think there's going to be a lot of structural change. And, let's face it, O'Connell's only in year 3 going to year 4. It's going to be at least one more contract and maybe a playoff win, people, before he gets more power within the organization. And then I disagree, Sally, or with the commenter. I am not hey, what's going on with Hawkinson? I took it with a grain of salt that he missed the season's first half. When he came back to me, he was a boost in the offense. Yeah, he had a game where he had some drops, or he always has a game and a half where you're like, oh, that's a little odd. But I think that happens to a lot of players. So I give Hawkinson a benefit of the doubt coming back from the ACL tear. It was a little weird, though. He didn't score any touchdowns. I kept thinking over and over, this is the week when Hawkinson's getting off the schneid.
Yeah.
I expect him to gel instantly with J.J. McCarthy, and I think we'll be all smiles about Hawkinson in no time.
Oh, I'm not saying like that get rid of him or anything like that. I'm just saying I would like to see them to have an additional option. I know they have. Well, will Oliver will still be under contract, right?
Yep, one more year.
But then Johnny Munt will most likely be out, which I'm fine. After the botched onside kick situation, he can go. He's never coming back from that with me. So, goodbye. All right, chat. What else is going on? I don't know. Who would you, Dustin, name some top free agents though? I know you named a couple, but are there any that
Yeah.
you didn't mention yet that you think the Vikings should target?
Let's see here. Milton Williams is a defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman from the Eagles. He doesn't get talked about because they already have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. He's always got a PFF score every game in the 70s. He should be gettable. I don't know if the Eagles can keep paying 3 defensive tackles when their contracts come up. So Milton Williams, the Eagles, Trey Smith is everybody's favorite offensive guard target. I brought up my Javonte Williams take. He would be a youthful running back if they don't want to run it back with Aaron Jones. And then a sneaky prediction, and I'm going to give credit to this one to Adam New, who writes for VikingsTerritory.com. He's from England, and when he wrote about it this week, it really turned a light bulb in my head. There are a lot of WR3 big name options in this free agency, whether it's Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper Kupp might be cut, and he is from the Kevin O'Connell Super Bowl team. Right. The Vikings can very easily get a big name, productive WR3, probably in his career's final, the back 9 of it. And I want to point out that this could be crucial because Jalen Naylor was decent. He was never consistent. And Jordan Addison will probably be suspended for the first 3 games of this season, which means if you pick up Amari Cooper or you find a way to get Cooper Kupp who didn't sound like he was coming back to the Rams after they lost in the playoffs based on his interview. There might be a sneaky need there because you're going to go through the first month of the season with Jefferson and Naylor. No, hey, by the way, we got Cooper Kupp or we got Amari Cooper. So keep an eye on big name WR3s that are unusually gettable in this free agency.
I had not even considered that at wide receiver 3, and you're so right. How cool would it be to have Cooper Kupp?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
you're right.
I can guarantee you there's a relationship there with Kevin O'Connell. And
Yeah.
go read back or listen back to his post game interview. He said the decision isn't up to him whether he comes back. He said that's up to them. And usually when a guy says that, it means that he knows the writing on the wall.
Yeah, for sure. That would just be so cool when we have those 3 wide receivers.
Yeah,
and
you'd get the version of Cooper Kupp that would probably get you about 800, 850 yards. We're not talking like the 2021 Offensive Player of the Year, but to finish his career with Kevin O'Connell in a pass-happy offense makes all the sense in the world.
Oh my God, that would be beautiful. I don't want to fall in love with that idea, but I am very excited about the potential because you're right. I mean, 800 yards from wide receiver 3. Okay.
Yeah. So you have a to-do list. You got to re-fall in love with JJ McCarthy, and then we got to talk this Cooper Kupp thing into fruition.
I was never in love with him in the first place. This is the thing. I was never in love with him.
Well, then fall in love for the first time.
I can't fall in love with someone until they give me a little something to work with here. I don't have anything yet. And
he gave you one fantastic quarter of a preseason game. Thank you very much.
I wasn't even there. I wasn't even there. So I saw, some highlights. I was actually out of town. It's like the very first preseason game I've never not been to. I didn't even get to feel the exhilaration in person. Obviously, it doesn't take much for me to fall in love with you as a quarterback or really otherwise. I mean, just give me like 4 weeks of consistency and I'm in. So that's all he's got to do.
And have red hair, that helps.
No, I mean the red hair, that helps, but that's rare. You can't find both of those things. Very rare to find the consistency and the red hair together. Hasn't worked out for me so far, so all right, you guys, let's see what else we need to start wrapping up here. A lot of arguments about Diggs in the chat, which I don't see that as being feasible anyway. I don't think that he would be coming back here. I'm a Diggs apologist, though, so I don't want to get into any of that. Don't have to fall in love. You just have to fall in line.
Oh, yeah. He's using a political quote. I love it. The quote is Democrats love to fall in love. Republicans fall in line.
Oh,
with their candidate.
Okay. Oh, that's controversial for right now. I don't know if we need to get into that already. Only day 2, but okay. Well, what else do we have? Are we wrapping up here? I don't have anything else unless we want to shit on the Lions one last time. I think the audience would love that. No, George, I am not a natural redhead at all. At all. I thought that was obvious. I did do my roots though. I did my roots so I could go to Arizona and look my best, but it didn't turn out for me. So I remember that now.
My closing argument for the episode is Lions fans, or at least this chunk of them, really did themselves and their team a disservice because I now have friends that I love and trust that have them in the same category as the Packers. I'm not there yet. I will always hate the Packers more than the Lions and Bears combined. But there are folks that the Lions have leapfrogged their hate watching agenda. And that's all because they've acted like just elementary school kids that have never experienced any semblance of stardom. They were pissed this week about their coordinators leaving. And I thought it was a bit at first when I was on Twitter. I was like, surely they can't be mad about their coordinators getting promotion. They are. They're butthurt like you wouldn't believe. So I can't wrap my head around just one taste of success, and this is how you react. I don't know if it will change, but yeah, my parting, I guess, closing argument is that your coordinators are always going to get promoted if they're good. This should not be a shocker or a conspiracy.
They get promoted even if they aren't that good all the time.
They're just decent.
Yeah. If you have a successful season, if your team makes it to the playoffs, you are getting interviews for your coordinators without a doubt. Even if they did absolutely nothing, even if they don't even call plays or anything like that, they're getting They're getting interviews. So I don't know what they're so upset about. I'm with you. I think it's just the lack of success. But I think for us, I mean, it's we've obviously had more success, but we've never made it to the big game. And in my lifetime, we haven't made it to the Super Bowl, and we in any of our lifetimes, they have not won the big game. So I think with me and with us, we're always kind of like more cautiously optimistic. I'm never going to talk shit to anybody because I've seen anything happen here. What got into them and made them think that they can just start popping off and saying all this crazy, vulgar, over the top stuff? I have no idea. They certainly haven't passed the Packers for me yet, but I will say overall, the Packers fans have been kind to me in general. Yes, we might, get into some arguments or just not. I don't like their arrogance. I'm obviously very jealous of them and their experience as being a fan of an NFL team, but they're always pretty cordial. And I just these Lions fans, I don't know. They've made me root against them, which is the first time ever. I've always rooted for the Lions, and now it's like, no.
Well, yeah, they. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I didn't even dislike the Lions until like 2 years ago. I had them in a separate category. They were my little brother, and we were like 80-40 against those bitches. So why would I hate them? And all of a sudden, they've come along and acted like they're the big brother now, and I'm like, homie, it doesn't work that way. And then it's just joyous to watch them lose twice. They blew the largest lead in the history of conference championship football last year. And then this year they got, boat raced by a team with a rookie quarterback. It's like it's comeuppance and karma that's hitting them. Just shut your mouth and wait for your team to win. Kind of like we do. When's the last time Sally and I ever got on Twitter or this show and started like chewing people out because our team was so good? We know we're going to end up bungling it. So we take it easy.
Exactly. Like, I don't understand. Like, they have just been so over the top. And you're right. Like, they were in a completely different category. I wanted them to be successful. I thought, you know what? If they win a Super Bowl and all of those fans, they went through all this shit for however long and they won a Super Bowl, that gives me hope that the Vikings will win a Super Bowl. I hope that they have that success. And then obviously down the road, I mean, if they're playing against Lions, yeah, fuck them. If they're playing against in a game that's going to impact the Vikings, yeah, fuck them. But overall, I wanted them to have some success, and you can even say that to them. Like, I can say that to them. I actually really like your team. I like what they've done in the front office and what they've built. They'll tell me to go fuck myself. I don't get it. Like, they're in my DMs telling me, I mean, it's wild, and I don't know. I have said many times, like last year when I defended all these crazy people that were talking shit, I'm like, I don't want the trolls of our fan base representing me. So I refuse to believe that that's the majority of their fans. I refuse to believe it. Dolly's going ham on her bone. Sorry, you guys, we're wrapping up here. But
the difference, there's one difference there. It's like the Lions folks that are really loud. They're not like, Jeff 8735627. They're like Honolulu Blues with 70,000 followers. These are big name keynote social media accounts that are run by adults that are doing this. Like when it first started to kick up, I'm like, well, it's some dickhead middle schooler that's just pulling your leg. And then it's like, no, this is like the me of the Lions fan base. Some guy that reports on the team and he's being a cock. I couldn't believe it.
I agree with you. And even Will Rock, who I've done a couple shows with, he did this show with me. I think he's a great guy. He's great at what he does. But even he got offended. We were on his show the first matchup, and we both said that we thought the Vikings were going to win. And he was like pissed. He was like talking shit. He started talking shit to us. We're like, okay, man. Like, this is just our prediction. Like, I don't know. But all right, with this last thing, I want to bring, because I don't agree with this and I have to dispute it. Cause and Effect says, we keep saying who we can get, but let's flip the script. Who wants to come here? I can buy into that argument maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. I think that that's absolutely asinine because look at the facility. I don't know. I'm getting off top. I don't know. My tongue is getting twisted now because I'm so passionate about it. I think who wouldn't want to come here? They get rated in the report card for the NFL about what a great experience it is to play here the last at least 2 years in a row with A or A+ in every single category, going from, facilities, nutrition, travel, a family experience, and everything else like that. Why wouldn't people want to come here? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't have any evidence to say that. Oh, nobody wants to come play for the Vikings. It's usually the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe back in the day with Mike Zimmer, maybe people didn't want to come here in the shitty winter park in Eden Prairie that was like the roof was. Yeah, Brad Childress, those days. But I think we've moved past that. But all right, guys, let's wrap it up. We have been on here for an hour. Thank you guys for coming to hang out with us this Tuesday evening. Dustin, everybody can find you on VikingsTerritory.com and Vikes Now, your YouTube channel. You have any closing thoughts for us?
Nope. I at the beginning of the playoffs, I picked the Chiefs over the Eagles in the Super Bowl, so I'm sticking to that. Full disclosure, at the beginning of the season, I picked the Bengals over the Eagles, and they let me down by this much without any defensive performance. So I will stick to that prediction. Yeah, Vikes Now and Vikings Territory, and then it seems like I'm every 4 week guest on here. So come see me on here.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris said the Vikings even got Sally to come. So, I mean, that's like the biggest free agency acquisition out there. Let's be real. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. See you next Tuesday night, and Skol Vikings.
Skol, baby.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a big shout out goes to Sal and her guests on this Vikings First and SKOL production, partnered with the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks, everyone, and SKOL.